I'm Janice Carter-Levitch-Humphrey, publisher of the Voice of Louisville magazine. The Speed Museum and the Voice-Tribune would like to welcome you to the Design Challenge. We are selecting local fashion designers to create a ready-to-wear companion inspired by a couture paper gown selected from the Isabelle de Borchgrave Fashioning Art from Paper exhibition that is currently at the Speed Museum. Today I'm going to introduce to you the first 3 talented designers that have been selected to take on this challenge. So stay tuned, there's more to come. The selected designers have gotten the chance to see the exhibit and take in the elaborate details on these stunning gowns. Designers don't have to use paper, but are free to use any other material to create their looks. In just a few minutes, you will hear from them to learn more about their personal style and which piece they have selected as inspiration. Over the next couple of months, they will work on their look leading up to a runway showcase in the gallery and present their final designs at June's virtual after hours. We also need to mention Kmac Couture. Kmac Museum hosts a paper fashion show every year along with Kmac Couture, but this challenge is separate. The idea was spurred by the paper fashions in Isabelle de Borchgrave's show, the current exhibit at the Speed Museum. The fashion designers participating in this one-time challenge are Edward Taylor, founder and head designer for Louisville's non-binary clothing line, Evangelique Designs, Pascal Ballard, art director for the Voice-Tribune, and Frankie Lewis, contestant on season 17 of Project Runway. Let's hear from them about their work. Edward Taylor is a queer Filipino-American artist and fashion designer who currently resides in Louisville, Kentucky. They are the founder and head designer for Louisville's non-binary clothing line, Evangelique Designs, where you can feel the most authentic you can imagine. Since obtaining a BFA from the Kentucky College of Art and Design at Spalding University, they have been featured in the Louisville Bespoke 2016 Fall, 2017 Spring, and 2019 Spring Fashion Show, as well as being featured in the 2013 through 2021 Kmac Couture Fashion Show and in Columbus Fashion Week 2019 in the Passport to Fashion Show. Taylor was also aired on WDRB in 2021 for their work in Kmac Couture and featured in several Louisville-based magazines such as the Voice-Tribune for the Voice of Louisville magazine. When Taylor isn't spending their time making couture and non-binary clothing for the Louisville population, they spend their time as a costume designer for several feature films locally as well as in New York and Boston, styling celebrities such as Denise Richards, Heskiri Velasquez, and Vanessa Merrill. Next up, let me introduce Pascal Ballard. Pascal Ballard is the current art director for the Voice-Tribune. Meeting deadlines and fussing over tea-fueled layouts is what it's all about. In their downtime, Pascal concocts new weird things to wear and adventures with partner James, who is the official tea maker, along with their dog, Scotchy Morsel. We welcome Pascal to this challenge and look forward to her creations. Let me introduce Frankie Lewis. Frankie Lewis is a Louisville, Kentucky native, a Southern Indiana adoptee, and a Los Angelian in training. As Frankie puts it, Los Angeles has my home, but Louisville has my heart. A graduate of the University of Louisville's Theater Arts Department, Frankie developed her sewing skills and love for design under the guidance of Zana Goldentool and Melissa Shepard of the U of L Costume Shop. Her training as both a theatrical performer and costumer has majorly influenced Frankie's work. Frankie's love for community is the foundation for Frankie Lou, a full-service fashion house that aims to minimize our impact on the environment and maximize our impact on the community. Through special projects, Frankie Lou, and wearable art, Frankie uses fashion to try and leave the world a little better and give back to the communities that made her.
Hey dolls, it's Edward Taylor, Louisville's local fashion designer and founder of Evangelique Designs, a non-binary clothing line breaking the blurred lines of what is men's and women's wear with you wear, a brand where you can feel the most authentic you imaginable. Growing up as a fabulous queer person in a small county in Kentucky, clothing in a department store always seemed to be placed in the traditional binary sections, such as the men's department and or women's. This caused a lot of anxiety shopping because if I was interested in wearing something more feminine, I'd have to shop in the women's section, which as a young boy led to fear of being ridiculed. Evangelique Designs eliminates that fear with you wear, because fashion should be enjoyed by everyone, no matter the association they have for themselves. Be authentically you and what makes you, well, you. We're all a blank canvas, and at Evangelique Designs, you're your own unique doll, ready to be dressed in the fashions of your choice. As a designer, I tend to be inspired by the campy and whimsical approach to drag culture, superheroes, and the nostalgia of childhood, such as the marketing and designs of toys. I'm always looking at designer Jeremy Scott in the Moschino collection for inspiration, because he tends to also present designs in that campy yet high fashion sense. I'm also very inspired by the great Alexander McQueen and their walks of art. The sculptural forms and theatrics of the McQueen runway drives my creative process, and you'll see a bit of that in the June reveal of my ready-to-wear garment. When it comes to my design process, I like to color block with vibrant colors and interesting forms. Size inclusivity is also a large part of the Evangelique Designs brand and is incorporated in the beginning of the design process. Providing elements in the garment to be adjusted to a variety of sizes, as well as using durable and stretch fabrics in the construction phase, the consumer can rock a confident look that will last for ages. I want to thank the Speed Art Museum and the Voice-Tribune for this amazing opportunity to showcase with you all the creativity and drive I have for both art and fashion. And with that being said, I chose Pisson as my inspiration for my ready-to-wear garment. I was instantly drawn to the vibrant color pairing of the purple and red, and the overall form of the paper dress provided that theatrical and whimsical appeal that I tend to be interested in. I'll be modernizing this 1915 Russian ballet design with a high-low jacket and high-waisted pants with hand-cut pattern design that will burn your socks off. A little foreshadowing. Of course, if you know anything about the Evangelique Designs, there will be a bit of a theatrical twist and a performative aspect embedded into my ready-to-wear. I can't wait to amplify my ability to heights not yet seen, so be prepared. And as always and utmost importance, Black Lives Matter. Thank you, dolls, for indulging in what I have to say. Welcome to the Dollhouse. With love, Edward Taylor.
Welcome to my studio. I'm Pascal Ballard, the art director for the Voice of Louisville, and I'm really excited to be taking part in the Speed Museum Isabelle de Borchgrave Design Challenge for this summer. I'm a BFA in graphic design, but I've been sewing since I was about 16. I was really inspired by a lot of books I was reading. If you've ever seen Lady Hawk, everybody in that wears a cloak, and I really wanted a cloak. So that was my very first project, was figuring that out. So it may come as no surprise that I picked the Elizabeth I piece of Isabelle de Borchgrave's work to interpret into ready-to-wear, because I really love the drama of medieval Renaissance clothes. The lace color on that really caught my eye. The piece in person was like a little hidden surprise that down the back there are kind of like these pennants, and I wanted to incorporate that as well. A lot of the clothes that I am inspired by are cosplay or historical, which seem a little too impractical for everyday wear. They're bigger, they're larger than life. So when I would make those, I would realize that I wasn't wearing them as much as the effort and detail that I was putting into them. So I just evolved to incorporate touches of those to my everyday wardrobe. So this challenge is pretty much already what I do for my everyday wardrobe, kind of bringing it kind of like into like a secret interpretation. You could wear it to the grocery store and you might not realize what it was originally from, but it would still be interesting. So this is right up my alley. This is exactly what I love to do. And I'm very excited to work on something to show you guys later on in this year. Thanks for having me.
Hi there, my name is Frankie Lewis. I am the owner and designer of Frankie Lou, a full-service fashion house that caters to women of all sizes. We also aim to minimize our impact on the environment through sustainable methods of garment construction and production, and we also want to maximize our impact on the community. Though I live in Los Angeles now, Louisville, Kentucky will always have my heart, and I will never miss a chance to participate with my fellow artists in the city. So I'm very excited to participate in this Ready to Wear challenge with the Speed Art Museum. The inspiration that I chose was the Banyan and waistcoat. From the beginning of my career, I've been in love with different coats and outerwear and what the possibilities are with pieces like that. And when I saw the Banyan and waistcoat, I just knew that I had to do something to bring that look from its time to our time. As a designer, I really love texture, volume, lines, architecture, the shape of things. And when I saw the Banyan and waistcoat, I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to play with all of those elements into one look. I love the floral texture of the brocade that the Banyan and waistcoat looks to be made out of. And I really do enjoy the floral vibe that it has. I'm also obsessed with the volume that could be achieved with a coat like that, as well as with the undershirt. So I hope you enjoy the piece. And I'm looking forward to showcasing it to you.
My name is Erika Holmquist-Wall, and I am the curator of European and American painting and sculpture here at the Speed Art Museum. And I am also the venue curator for Isabelle de Borchgrave, fashioning art from paper. And it was a real delight to see the three designs that the three designers chose. All three of these pieces have very, very different histories and backgrounds, each with their own fascinating twist and historical bent. And I think it's great. I'm really excited about this. We'll start with the Elizabeth I gown, which is really a classic example of Tudor costume. The Tudor period being, well, when you think of King Henry VIII of England and his wives. Elizabeth I was his daughter by Anne Boleyn, who of course famously lost her head. And her life and death dates, she was reigning from about 1533 to 1603. So just to put you back in that time period. And the painting that this costume is based on is done by an artist named Nicholas Hilliard. And it was done when Elizabeth was in her 60s. And it's a fantastic piece. And when you see the work in the exhibition and the costume that Isabelle designed from paper, it gives you a wonderful sense of what Elizabeth must have looked like, what it might have been like to interact with somebody wearing this incredibly lavish costume, this silk gown. There were hundreds of pearls sewn on to the overcoat, and of course, pearls being a symbol of purity, suitable for the Virgin Queen, which was another euphemism or nickname for Elizabeth I, since she never married and never had children. What's really fantastic about this gown, I think, is just from the level of detail that it offers with the ruffles and the lace and the folds, is the textile design. And I was so delighted to see what the designer did to evoke Nicholas Hilliard's original painting. And of course, if you take a closer look, the gown, the undergown features flowers and land and sea creatures, all kinds of incredible flora and fauna. And I'm not sure, we might have to Google around on this one, but I think, while some of it is maybe a little fantastic, I feel like I've read somewhere that this is actually like the flora and fauna that's represented in and around, of course, England and the environs of which she ruled. So it's just a wonderful example, and I'm really thrilled that the designer brought this example up into the 21st century.
Pascal Ballard, and I am the art director for the Voice-Tribune. I chose the Elizabeth I dress with my mask flapping around. I translated it into ready-to-wear. I thought something simple. Translating Elizabeth I into something simple was harder than it sounded. So I focused mostly on adapting the illustrations on the underskirt into a custom fabric. With vintage velveteen, and then keeping the shape of the lace collar, the lace hood, as well as a more modern peplum on the vest.
For the second design that we're going to see tonight, this is a really wonderful example of actually a very strange example of cultural and textile appropriation. And I'm going to explain why in a little bit here. But we fast forwarded from the Tudor court into the 17th and 18th century, especially in Europe and America. And so what we're looking at is a men's robe, and in the Isabelle exhibition, this is designed, or Isabelle based the costume on a portrait of Peter the Great of Russia, the Tsar of Russia at the time, the ruler. And it's a wonderful example of, how fashion can kind of grip an imagination and really, you talk about fads and trends and things that come and go. The Banyan Coat is really unusual. It became very popular, especially among men in the 17th and 18th century, living in Europe and America. They were based on the underrobes that were worn under Japanese kimonos, and they were brought to Europe by, of course, the multinational corporation, the Dutch East India Trading Company in the mid-17th century. So, of course, the Dutch were sending their ships all over the world, especially into the Far East, and bringing back spices and textile goods and, all kinds of things back to Europe, foods, for example. But these underrobes, these kind of women's undergarments, really, if you're going to just be practical about it, were used to kind of, help pack things, pack the crates. And men took to wearing them as loose, comfortable, like a dressing gown or a morning gown, very kimono-like garment made of cotton, linen, or silk, very light. And they took to wearing them over their shirt and breeches. And these things became so popular that people like to have their professional portrait, their official portraits painted. So you often see men from this period, like you would have seen Peter the Great, donning these banyans in their official portrait. Sometimes they would wear a turban with them. Instead of wearing a wig, right? So it was a very kind of a relaxed, loose, kind of an at-home look, very comfortable. But it was also used to kind of designate, yourself as, especially in portraits, was you may look like a little more philosophical or a little more intellectual if you're wearing one of these robes, right? You're living a life of the mind. And what is fascinating, the trend even made its way over to colonial America. And especially in colonial Virginia, when you think about how humid it is in the summers of, in Washington, D.C. and the coast of Virginia, gentlemen would wear these lightweight banyans as informal streetwear in the summer, these hot, humid summers. So, these really are a fashion that gets really reappropriated from their sort of how they were originally used and worn by women in Japan to wear under their kimonos. And it's kind of an interesting gender flip.
Lewis of Frankie Lewis Fashion House. I'm a designer born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. My piece was the Banyan Coat, which was worn by royalty, and so my interpretation of a rent-to-wear piece was to create something that would be worn by royalty, the common man, people like you and me, hence our faux bra that we're calling it. Something special about Frankie Lou is that we permitted that all of our ready-to-wear items would be made out of existing clothing, because creating new clothing is just adding to the pile of clothing in our landfills and adding to our climate change. So we wanted to make this an opportunity to go from rich to everybody else. Thank you.
The third design that we're going to be looking at, we've fast forwarded even further into the early 20th century, into Paris by way of Russia, to a modern dance troupe called the Ballet Russe. And everything that the Ballet Russe produced was at the absolute cutting edge of modernity, from the stage sets, the costumes, the choreography, the dancers, the music. I mean, everything was absolutely of the moment. And Mikhail Larionov was a Russian artist who made his way to Paris with his partner, Natalia Goncharova, who also designed for the Ballet Russe. And both Larionov and Goncharova were really steeped in Russian folk culture. The wonderful folk and fairy tales that they were told are very, very popular in Russian culture at the time. Also very colorful folk costumes. And so this really influenced their designs for the Ballet Russe. Many of the ballets were actually stories drawn from these Russian fairy tales. And in this work, the Paysan, Really, this kind of shines through. This kind of, it's like a little suit, but it's got a little flair to it. And the blues and the reds and the white, the color combinations are absolutely what was happening in early 20th century art at Paris at this time. You know, you think of all of these avant-garde art movements, the other artists who were associated with the Ballet Russe at the time, not just Larionov and Goncharova, but Pablo Picasso, Henri Matisse, you know, all of the names that we kind of associate with early modern art, and for really changing things up and being as experimental as you possibly can. And in designing for the costume and for the stage, you also have to design costumes that you have to move about in, right? So the freedom to move, the freedom to be able to kind of leap and dance and twirl, you know, it's a very specialized textile design. So I'm really excited to see what our third designer is going to come up with.
I'm a non-binary designer here in Louisville, Kentucky. I have a clothing line which is Evangelique Designs, and Evangelique Designs is very much inspired with this piece here in my creation for this ready-to-wear runway show. I was inspired by the color palette, the purple fuchsia and the red. That color blocking was important for me to incorporate into my design here, and as well as this gold detail. I start down here at the bottom of the pants with a flame, and that was kind of an homage to the more modern age. And then as we go up the leg, we have a more Baroque style. I really wanted to infuse both in this suede pants and this satin shine jacket with the sleeve off to the shoulder.